Welcome to heCast, the official podcast of He Changed It. My name is Mike Chisholm. As always, excited to be here, to be moderating this broadcast that we do, talking about everything in the life of men's mental health. I'm excited because we've only had a couple second timers on the podcast here. And one of our original episodes of heCast had a guest who is one of my favorite people personally, and his name is Bib Patel. If you've been a longtime listener of the podcast here, you will remember Bib, and I just really grateful that he's in my life. But and grateful is the operative word here. The other day I got a message from him, and he was saying he's enjoying heCast and all that, and he's like, "Hey, we should do an episode on gratefulness." And I was like, done. Let's do an episode on gratefulness. And we had to reschedule this week. So I said, hey, how about Tuesday? And he said, yes, let's do it. And so here we are. I get the opportunity to take the afternoon off because all I got to do is just talk to my buddy Bib. Bib, thank you so much for coming out again and ringing my bell saying, hey, let's talk about gratefulness.
I can't tell you. Thank you for that amazing intro, Mike. I think one of the main reasons I like to have these chats is because of that. And I needed a new ringtone. So I'm going to change it to that. Okay. And we'll be good to go. It was actually great when I messaged you. I think it was on like Sunday. Yeah. And I was just listening to some of He Changed It, and we can get into what came about as a result, but it was like, hey, we need to do, like, it'd be great to do, just chat with Mike about just gratitude and grateful, because you're such a positive guy. I learned so much from you and your optimism that I was like, I'd just love to open myself up with that, because I think of myself very much the same. And we've talked about that in the first time we chatted.
Absolutely.
And I was like, hey, Mike, we should do an episode on gratitude. And you go, and you just like instant reply, how about Tuesday? Like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm in. So it's a pleasure, absolute pleasure to be here again, chatting with you. It's been 5-6 months.
Yeah, that's crazy. The COVID time capsule that we're in right now, or time frame that we're in, it's really crazy. It makes things, it stretches out time frames and makes things also very, very, very quick. They come up, but the idea that we haven't had a conversation for 5 months is nuts.
Yeah, and so but that's how a testament to like the awesomeness of you and just really how much I appreciate our friendship is that we just pick up. Hey, how's it going? Good. Oh, it's been 5 months? That's amazing.
That's one of the markers in my life, man. One of the markers of relationships that I have is between acquaintance and friend, and everybody has their own personal definition of how you get to those two words. But one of the markers I have is this a person who we haven't seen each other for months or even maybe years, and then we can just immediately pick up from where we left off and maybe fill in a couple details here and there. But at the end of the day, that dynamic is just as hot as ever. And you and I have always had that dynamic.
Yeah, absolutely. There's we talked about the underlying of the show is around gratitude. Yeah. And even just saying in that regard, you take a look at the ones that kind of in crisis mode or in celebration mode, who comes to you, and just to kind of expand on that. I think about when I moved from Edmonton in like 2000, it was actually January 2nd, 2000.
Yep.
I think you were like 8. I moved with my job because I was promoted, and I was moving away from all my friends, all my family. I didn't know anyone in Calgary. I just knew I was going to a new work.
Right. And
I had a big network in Edmonton. And by network, that sounds a lot more adult than drinking buddies. And then I remember I moved to Calgary, and it was those who kept in contact with me, and the guys who came to visit, they're my friends to this day. Yeah. Like they're my lifelong friend. That's 21 years ago.
Absolutely.
And so I started to be able to shed the people, and they weren't necessarily negative or pulling me down. They were the ones that I really didn't help me move forward, though.
Yeah.
Right. They kind of left me stagnant, and they were great people. It's just, sometimes it doesn't click except for the one thing that's not necessarily a positive thing. Right. Going out and drinking isn't a positive thing.
Right.
when you do it a lot. Once in a while, it's great to catch up and stuff. But the underlying tone of that is the catch up, not the drinking. And
Yes.
so it wasn't until it was early on, so back then, that I started realizing there's a lot of happiness that comes with being able to shed and streamline your world,
Yes.
whether it's friends, even family that you stay in contact with. And when it's your choice, you can definitely make a lot of decisions that help create this bubble that we all operate. We all have our own bubble.
Yes.
That you move forward with in a day to get you through. And so
I just thought of a really good nerd analogy. It's like you're piloting you're the captain of the Starship Enterprise, and if you're flying alongside of another ship, which ship are you willing to take the shields down for? Where you're safe enough, where you can actually be so authentic that, you know what, I know that this is going to be okay. The shields are down, versus, people that might be in your life where, yeah, you know what, I'm going to keep my protective layer up a little bit and not let that person maybe into the really, the soft parts of my life.
It's funny, Mike, and I've heard that before, and I always thought I was normal when it came to this, but I realized that there's an oddity. I don't actually have shields.
Oh, really?
In the beginning, yeah. When I meet people, my whole guard is down. I'm not worried about much. Now, if that person does something or accidentally, it's kind of like, you have my trust and my respect until you do something to take that away.
Right.
And then it's pretty much gone.
Right.
And it's worked. I'd like to think it's worked really well for me in life. It's allowed me to come across, to cross paths with so many just phenomenal people. But at the same time, if they come in my life and they leave, I keep an eye on those that pay attention, like that come back, that I don't have to chase after for friendship, that I don't have to chase after to keep connected with. Because you don't want those one directional relationships.
I really, really appreciate what you just said, because I suffer from something similar in the idea that I've been definitely taken for a ride a couple times by people who assume I'm naive. And it's not that I'm naive, although perhaps maybe I am a little bit. Until that realization is there, and it's like, okay, no, I have self-respect, but I'm just trusting to that point where it's like, yeah, no, a lot of people do get that first chance. And I think about the movie Yes Man. Remember that movie Yes Man, where Jim Carrey has to start saying yes to everybody, and all of the opportunities and adventures that he gets himself into because of just saying the word yes. And I'd like to think that having the attitude that you just talked about has definitely led to a lot more positive things than having to put those shields up or having to say, okay, no, you took advantage of me being naive. Okay, lesson learned. I think I'd like to think a lot more positive comes from that.
Yeah, and it's really how you internalize it, right? Yeah. Let's say you have 1 out of or 2 out of 10 negative experiences from your positivity. And, I can go into that in a sec, but do you remember the 8 or do you remember the 2?
Ooh, there you go. What do you focus on? Yeah.
Yeah. And so, it's come to me because people don't know how to take me. And same thing with you, probably. It's like, I get that a lot. You come on and you have a big personality and you're just the kindest soul. And then people are like, hang on here. This can't be right. What are you trying to sell me? Yeah. And you're like, nothing. Yeah. I'm willing to give as long as you're willing to accept. And people just aren't, and to whatever past they have, or for whatever reasons they're not accepting of it, they label you. And a lot of times it's out of jealousy, it's out of whatever issues they got going on, but they label you as somebody who's in the wrong, as opposed to themselves opening up saying, hey, maybe this person is just being nice.
Okay, I got to ask you a question. Have you looked at my Facebook lately?
No, why?
Okay. Well, after this is done, I want you to look at the post I put up on. I want you to look it up after we're done this, because it's really funny. This morning, I literally put a post up that talks exactly about that. And I made it public too. Like I've been on a real Mr. Rogers kick lately. and everything from watching the Tom Hanks movie to a lot of footage of Fred Rogers, like speaking at colleges or.
Did you see him speaking at Congress?
Well, I've seen that many times before, and many times when I'm in need of a boost, that's one of my go-to videos to kind of look at to realize that there is hope for the world, because there are people like Fred Rogers. But I really connect with him. Like I do. The things that light his fire, light my fire, and it kind of, that was sort of brought to my attention over the last couple of days. So I literally 8 hours ago put a post up on Facebook that talked about how many people take me wrong. They wonder where my kindness comes from. They wonder my positivity, my optimism, and all that. And I talked about that, and I really kind of threw it out there. And it's so crazy that you just brought that up right now. I appreciate the fact that you and I sharpen each other like that. And every time we have a conversation, a lot of these, coincidences, which there are none, of course, come up. Now, what else isn't a coincidence? And I like to take personal pride in this is that after our last conversation, you and a buddy, a mutual buddy of ours, started a podcast.
Well, yeah.
Talk about that a little bit. That's really cool. I like to think there are no coincidences, that when you were a guest on we kind of whet the appetite a little bit, and you just wanted more, so you went out and started doing your own thing, which is, I will say, is that what happened?
Somewhat like that. When it's an interesting. It's just really interesting, because at the beginning, if you would ask me on January 1st, 2020, what are your goals for this year?
Sure.
There's two things that really happened that weren't anywhere near it. Number one, I'd be building my wife practically a farm in our backyard with a greenhouse and garden boxes. And it's like her favorite thing. And that includes children and me.
Wow.
She loves that more than anything.
Fantastic.
And then I would have a podcast. I didn't know the first thing about podcasting, how setups, this microphone. But a buddy of mine, Landon, and we've always had good conversations. It's a lot like you and I,
yeah,
in which we'd always just chat for like an hour or so, and there'd always be topics on it. It wasn't just, nonsense talk. There's always that in it, because that's the fun of it. But I found this entertaining, and we'd always get along really well. And so he's really heavily in the financial industry, which is where, you and I met, and him and I met, and he wanted to do more. He wanted to be able to teach people and share with them. And the same thing, like you and I, it's just free to give out, right? Exactly. It's not any kind of schwarmy, hey, we'll give you a little taste and then you got to come pay for it. It's just, here's the information. Here's what's worked for us. And it's free for you to do as you choose. If you don't like it, great. If you love it, great. If you want to learn more, awesome. Keep listening.
Yep.
And so we started having this conversation, and I was like, well, why don't you teach? Why don't you teach? And he goes, well, why don't we do it? I'm like, sure. And so we went on, we didn't know anything about it. Like, and I mentioned that, but like, I go, do we know anyone in sound? And he goes, my friend has an online radio station. Let me contact him. I'm like, okay. So Landon messages me, and he's like, yeah. So he has a lot of advice, but he also wants us to come on his radio show and do like an hour of content. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And so
is this like an hour of content every week?
No, just like get on there. I don't know I was just happy that somebody wanted us, like they were okay with me and Landon talking for an hour.
Okay. I gotcha. Yep.
And so, Landon goes to his place because it's in Vancouver, and that's where Landon is. I'm here, and I zoom in as we're doing now. And as soon as I see the picture, it's the flag of Ghana, Steve and Landon. And I'm like, what is happening here? I learned very quickly that the online radio station is Caribbean music, and that we're interrupting a weekend of Caribbean music for an hour for Landon, who, and I don't know how to say this appropriately, but is whiter than white.
Sure.
And me coming on there to talk about financial freedom for an hour. Like, it couldn't have been it couldn't have been better.
Right.
And so we get on there, and then as Len and I do, we just started chatting, and
The magic
somebody hit
starts to
record,
happen.
and
Yep.
an hour just flew by, and we get off, we get off the air or whatever you talk.
Sure.
And his buddy Steve is like, that was amazing.
Oh,
he's like, how much have you guys done this? And we're like, we've never done this. And he's like, are you kidding me? And so after that, it kind of like, all right, that was a good test run. And then every week we'd go on Facebook Live and just same thing, just pick a different topic. And I'd be more the interviewer for Landon. And the show is focused around financial freedom.
Yep.
Landon has absolute experience in, because he's done so well for himself. He's just over 30. He owns like 6 houses that are rental properties. He's just, and he's just got a great personality. And so our thought, and then I was like the interviewer, because I can talk and come up with questions. And then also on the, like, kind of the optimism, the positivity side, not that he's negative, but just kind of the morale boost.
Sure.
And we've done a bunch of episodes. And so we turned them into just strict audio. And now they're on Spotify, they're on Apple iTunes or Apple Podcasts, basically wherever you find podcasts. If you type in Landon and Bib.
I was just going to ask what it's called. So Landon, Landon.
Yep.
ANDBIB.
Yep. 3 words.
Okay.
And I've tested it. We couldn't come up with a better name.
Landon and Bib sounds good. It's got automatic-poetically, I like it. Landon and Bib, it has the exact right amount of syllables and they hit the right notes. I dig it.
If I ever leave the show, it'll just be and Bib.
That's damn right. You take that with you. That's your intellectual property.
So we took a little bit of a break over the holidays to kind of rejuvenate, but we're probably gonna get another started. We have lots of content, so we're posting every week, every other week, and then him and I are gonna just start putting some more together this week. We're gonna be talking about having your best year and getting really started to laying groundwork for your future.
Oh, that's awesome, man. I love that you're doing this. And I think that, this is one of those testaments where, a lot of my influences that don't get me wrong, my wife building this company is of course a massive incentive to do this. But at the end of the day, for me, it's been percolating in the background for a long time, because I've always known deep down that I've wanted to be a broadcaster of some sort. And, the whole thing of salary and establishing yourself in the world shows up, and, get into the financial world, build a financial business, which is very successful. And I'm super, super happy about it. But the people who I listen to for enjoyment, these broadcast influences, I'm a huge Kevin Smith fan. I'm a huge Joe Rogan fan, among others. And all of them are right now saying, hey, if you want to do a podcast. You can go for it. You hear these legendary broadcasters saying, it used to be such a really narrow road. Now anybody can have a show. And I finally, after a long period of time, realized that they're talking to me. And then this opportunity comes up through He Changed It, where Candy says, yeah, we need someone to host the podcast. I'm like, all right, let's do this. And I know that I'm preaching to the choir when I say this, but it's to the audience. The fulfillment that comes in when you start listening to what your instincts or your dreams have been asking you to do, the joy and the freedom that comes when you start to do that, when you start to actually have actions, you take that you take that fantasy and you actually turn it into a dream, because you start actually articulating actions towards that. Yeah, the journey itself is so fulfilling and so fun, and I can tell just you talking about what you and Landon are doing, how fulfilling it is for you.
It's definitely. It's itching a scratch, or it's scratching an itch that I had for sure, because it's one of these things when you can go, when we were, back when I was heavily involved in charity, and when I was heavily involved in the nonprofit world, there'll be events going on. Yep. I grew up with really just having high anxiety. I used to have anxiety attacks talking, just even being out with my buddies at a bar. We'd go in there and I'd be like, I can't be here, and I'd have to leave. So the idea of going on stage and talking in front of a bunch of people scared the crap out of me.
Yeah.
Right. To almost a paralyzing effect. And then as time went on, I realized that whether it's just me listening to liking the way I talk or not liking the way I talk, just listening to wanting to talk so much, I realized there was a message I could give. And because my optimism, I feel like I am an optimist.
You are.
Which is also very, very in line with being grateful and gratitude, was something that I want to share with others. And I realized that I could come across somebody's path and for whatever reason, not help them, but make their day a little better. Yes. You know, when you walk up to a cashier in wherever, and you can just tell that the day's been long. Yeah. And you say something and it jars them. Yep. In a great way. And they're just so appreciative that you came to their till. Yep. And I realized it's not that hard for me to do. And I don't know if it's people just choose not to, or that they don't have the ability to do that. But I just learned that I get so much fulfillment out of projecting, not joy in an office cheerleader kind of way, but it's always in the back of my head of how lucky we are to be in the situation we're in. And I can't speak for the world because there's a lot of people that are struggling. Sure. And so, but it's also what drives me to every day wake up and just feel so blessed for what we have. We're in these insane times right now with the pandemic and COVID going on. Unprecedented in our lifetime. For sure. Yeah. But I'm here having a chat with my friend Mike in a warm house, right? Surrounded by my friend, by my family who's healthy. Yeah. We have abilities to communicate with everyone else, and we're doing okay. Yes. So as much and you have those things when times get hard too. Absolutely. You have those things to fall back on for when times get hard. And that's another vantage point of those facts as well. When times are good, but also when times are hard, you have those things. Well, it's the abilities for people to come together as well. Back in Spanish flu days, for example, there weren't electronics to keep communicating with each other. Yeah, connectivity was completely different back then. Absolutely. There wasn't a community as well to join in. When you on the He Changed It app, there's forums, there's messaging. So even if you're isolated, I'm blessed because we have a beautiful house, I have room to move, and we have TV, we have all these things to keep us occupied. Yep. But at the same time, not too far away in distance from where we are, there are people who are in their 1-bedroom apartment that they can't go see their friends. Their family's not around. So they're kind of, they're just isolated in that regard. Yes. But there's still that ability to reach out and to connect with the community, and also others that are going through some of the same challenges that they are. Yeah. And so for me, gratitude didn't start with the pandemic. It won't end with the pandemic. It's just always been there. And it's stories from even before I was born that have really shaped me into just having so much appreciation. Yeah. And not to rant on, but like my earliest story is before I was born. My parents coming from India had my two older brothers were like 2, like 1 and 2 or something like that. This is back in 75, 74. Yep. They were sponsored to move to Canada from India from my dad's uncle. So basically my dad's uncle is like, you get here and we'll start providing your life. We got you covered. We've, sponsored. So they just had to get there. Going from India to Edmonton is a pretty long journey, and they had a stopover in Montreal. Right. And they had a layover in Montreal. Now, which sounds okay unless you have no money to your name, because all the money was once they got there. So they get to the airport, my mom, my dad, my 2 brothers, who are babies, and they have no money to stay in a hotel. They have no money to buy food. So they're just sitting there. And this stranger ccame up to them and said, "Hey, what's going on? Is everything all right?" My dad's like, "Well," kind of told him the story, and not a sob story. My dad's a proud man, but he says, we're trying to get to Edmonton, but we don't have any money for food and stuff. So we're just kind of hunkering down in the airport overnight, and hungry babies are just like they break your heart, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so this very kind soul took my dad, my mom, my two brothers to his friend's hotel, put them up overnight, brought them food, picked them up the next day, took them to the airport, and they were on their way.
Yeah.
So when you hear stories like that of people just without any kind of purpose for themselves, nothing in it for them.
No outcome except for to make somebody's life a little bit easier, shine a little bit of light on somebody.
When they're doing that for my family, how can I not spend the rest of my life paying back for that?
Well, and you bring up a good point talking about gratefulness or gratitude. It's contagious. It's every bit as contagious as the negative stuff. You know, somebody's having a bad day and they project that bad day onto others, you know, that you can see it in their mood or their words or whatever. And it can be disrupted because the opposite of those things is gratefulness, is gratitude. And when you are grateful, like I read that story recently about a Dairy Queen, you know, that deal where you're going through the drive-through and you're like, hey, you know what? I'll pay for the next guy behind me. Yep. And they said that it happened. I think it was a few hundred times.
Yeah.
That equaled $10,000 of I'll pay for the next guy. I'll pay for the next guy all the way back.
Yeah.
It's contagious, you know. At the beginning of that line was somebody who said, you know what, I'm going to make somebody's day behind me. And it went 3 figures deep of people who said, you know what, that made my day, but I'm going to do that. I'm going to pass it on and do the same thing behind. And that's one teeny tiny little example that gets reported on. That's what gratefulness does. It's contagious to the point where here's a dude talking about something that happened in his family, you know, at the time that he was born, like crazy.
Yeah. How amazing would it have been to be the first person to receive that free cup? Because it started many years ago. We don't know when, but it started. There was the first one, the first person to ever buy the coffee for the person behind him.
Right.
Or her. And that person behind was just like, what is happening here? Yeah. This is amazing. And to have their day, I've had coffees bought for me. You know, it's indicative that every time I go through the drive-thru, I always ask, what's the person behind me? In fact, just a couple of days ago, I needed coffee. We ran a cream at home. I'm like, I got a coffee. I got one for my wife. And I'm like, well, what's the person behind me? It was one person. So I'm like, how bad could it be? It was $30. I'm like, I'm grateful to about a $5 mark at this moment. You know, one thing, if you're in a bad mood, Mike, you know, most people, there's a commonality is to project the bad mood. Yeah. You know what I do when I'm in a bad mood? I do something good for somebody. Yep. I missed my flight. My son and I were coming to Kelowna from Calgary, and we missed our flight in the morning from Calgary. And as much as I like to blame the airline, it was the airline's fault in this regard. It was ridiculous. And I was really I'm like, we just missed our flight. As we watched the flight boarding. Yes. But neither here nor there.
I've been there. There's very few things more frustrating than when you could have made it. The agent tells you that you couldn't have made it. You go to the loading zone for the next flight and you see the flight boarding not full. There's a unique type of frustration to that. The Germans would probably have a word for that. They're so specific to their things. That is a unique frustration. Yeah.
It's a test of your will for sure. I just remember walking by and the WestJet people, because my flight was with not WestJet, but we won't get into that. The WestJet people were very kind and they couldn't do anything for me right that moment, but they're like, let me look into it and we'll page you if something happens. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay. And so I went and my son and I had grabbed something to eat. And then I bought a bunch of cookies and I went back to WestJet and I go, whenever I'm in a bad mood, I do something nice. I try to do something nice for someone else to snap me out of it. And so here you guys go. I don't know if you're allowed to accept these or not. And you just saw 4 agents just light up over cookies. Yes. And it really made
pretty thankless job that they have. Easier.
Oh, it is. Yeah, for sure. Yep. So if you can do something great for others, why not? If you have the ability, if it comes across your way and you have that opportunity to do it or not do it, I always choose to do it.
Well, and gratitude and gratefulness, it's funny. It is a state of mind for sure. There's no question. Is it the opposite? It's the enemy of things like fear or unsettledness and things like that. It's a technique, but at the end of the day, it can also be an intention. You know, I read once somewhere, and I don't know how true this is or not, but I've treated it that it's been gospel, and I have spread it around. So hopefully I'm not spreading around lies. But I've read once that when you smile, even if you're in a shitty mood, if you smile and you do it for a certain amount of seconds, I think it was like 15 seconds, you just force yourself to smile for like 15 seconds, you can trick your brain that it will release endorphins because it thinks you're happy because it understands the muscle movement of smiling. It'll actually release endorphins. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know if it's a placebo type of technique or not. I've done it. And for me, it's like, okay, it kind of works. Gratitude is the same thing. It can be something that you literally just do it for the sake of doing it. Like there's zero authenticity to what you're doing at that point. You're literally doing it because you're just like, oh, okay, I think this works. And you go buy somebody a cookie or you buy them a coffee, and you don't even have the greatest attitude from it. And lo and behold, more often than not, it's a hack. It works. It actually takes your state of mind and elevates it as you see yourself elevating somebody else's state of mind. And it's crazy how it works. And you can be in a terrible place or a bad place, but if you do something out of gratitude for somebody else, you express it somehow, it elevates you even out of just doing it for as something to do. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. You have the ability to be somebody's light in that moment.
Yeah.
And so take that opportunity. There's a Harvard study done in terms of gratitude, and it took a bunch of people and it divided them into three categories. One is, and this is that cliche, wake up and write the things they're grateful for.
Yes.
The second group, just write all the bad things that are going on. And the third group is just write things that gone on, regardless of good or bad. And of course, we know how that ended up is that the people who that started their day with gratitude just had a more positive outcome in their days. Even in our home, practicing what we preach, and it doesn't happen every day, but at dinner time, what will happen is, because I want my kids to have this as well, is that somebody will start, me and my wife, my two kids, somebody will start as we're eating dinner. Somebody will just mention somebody else's name. So my daughter will go, Dad, what are you grateful for? And then it's up to me to come up with three things. And it can be things that happen that day or bigger things, whatever we want is on the table. Just three things we're grateful for. And then I go to my son, what are you grateful for? And then we just go around the table. And you do that enough, and it just makes you not only have appreciation for the things that are going on with you, but to hear it from others, to hear my daughter say, I'm grateful for my new bed. Yes. I'm grateful for my desk, and all these things that really are not trivial, things that we take for granted day in, day out.
Yeah.
But just to hear them put on a pedestal makes you really appreciative for what you have.
Well, there's a couple of things I want to respond to what you just said with. Number one, writing it down. Many times throughout, conversationally, we'll hear how important it is to journal. Okay. I have never, even though I am a writer, I have never gotten to a place of journaling with ease. That is something that's always been like a pulling teeth type exercise. I've never really been able to journal. I had again, with my positive attitude and the positivity you talk about, people sometimes assume that I haven't been through shit. I've been through a lot of shit. I've been through some crazy stuff. 2015, 2016, I was a health journey for my wife. I almost lost her a couple of times. And we've had other things that have come through. 2018 was a particularly mentally difficult year for me. And I knew that I needed to journal. I'd been told it was the right thing to do, but I have never been able to access that. And so, but then somebody put me onto a gal who I consider a mentor. Her name is Crystal Flaman, phenomenal gal. She put me onto something called the 5-Minute Journal, and you can buy it at any bookstore. It's a $20 thing. It's called the 5-Minute Journal, and literally has one page per day. At the top of the page is a quote. And this is the journal for people who don't know how to journal. Okay. And the whole thing is centered around gratitude. And I'll tell you this, after a month of using this journal, I haven't not used it since. And it really is a secret to what I feel is fulfillment, authenticity, and vulnerability. And it's super easy to do. That's the thing. It's people who don't write, people who don't know how to journal. It is a phenomenal tool. And this is how it goes. Every day it looks the exact same. At the top is a quote that kind of gets you thinking if you read it. The first thing that you need to do is it says, okay, write down 3 things that you're grateful for. Okay. Write down, and then it has the lines for it. So you only have a small little spot that you can use to put it in there, but it gets you thinking about things you're grateful for. And then name 3 things that would make today great. Again, a couple short little lines.
Right.
And then it has an affirmation line. And the one that I am currently in is that I write is, I'll be super open with the audience here, and this is me, this is real. I can get the Gratefulness Journal and read it word for word. I am a kind, generous, thoughtful, powerful man who inspires millions and is worth millions. I am worthy. I am enough. I write that every morning, and
Fantastic.
then under that, as the end of the day. 3 great things that happened today. What could have made today better? And little teeny lines for that. So you talking about this, how your family is doing that intentionally, again, for somebody who might feel stuck in a rut, you get yourself that book.
Yeah.
Or do that exercise every day. I'm not trying to shill a book here. Do that exercise every day. And after a month, talk about your mindset. And dollars to donuts, like I'll bet all the money in my pockets versus all the money in their pockets that doing that exercise will do exactly that type of feeling that you were talking about around your dinner table.
Yeah.
Like
I think it's
powerful.
And it's not, and I think to the listeners, just to understand one thing, it's not easy to get started because you're changing it. If it's not something you've ever done, you could want to do it. You could have thought about it for months, years. Getting started is still hard. And then creating the habit of it takes time.
Absolutely.
So you got to do it, whatever it is, 30 to 27 days, 35, whatever amount it takes you to. Yeah. Because doing it when you're in the mood to do it, it's easy for anyone. Sure. I love working out when there's nothing else to do. Yes. And it's the middle of the day. Yeah. But when there's 100 things going on and children are screaming and my workout alarm goes off, it's pretty easy to kind of swipe it and just turn it off. But you have to get into it. The easy days are easy. The hard days are what you got to shape and ground and get started for. I don't journal either, Mike, because I can't read my writing, first of all. Silly computers. Yep. Yeah. Oh, before I forget, you know how you mentioned that like smiling just face like just on your own can change your mood. Yeah. I will say this, just be aware if you're staring in the direction of someone else. I'm not saying this from experience, but I'm saying this from experience because I'm quite oblivious. And I wasn't smiling. And I remember I had my headphones on and I was smiling I was listening to some stand-up comedy. And then I realized, when your eyes kind of focus straight ahead, I'm like, oh my God, I'm freaking this person out. So I pointed at my headphones. I turned it off. I'm like, I'm so sorry. But you're right. The main thing is it's actually not the act of smiling with your mouth that you need that. It's your eyes. When your eyes do something, I don't know the medical term for it, but when your eyes go up and you can tell somebody's truly smiling, that's what releases the endorphins. And it's medically proven. This isn't some kind of, witch's brew. In the mornings for me, waking up was difficult because I'm a morning person, but I had nothing to do because I didn't want to wake up. I tried waking up at 5 o'clock and working out. I hated every moment of it. And if you're hating working out, you're not going to do it well. Yep. Because my alternative was being in bed warm or get out, put on my workout clothes, and people are like, oh, I love being in my head and stuff like that. I don't. Okay. I would rather just be sitting there in bed having coffee. Yeah. But I found when I was doing that, what's the first thing you do when you're just chilling in bed and you're awake? you reach for
grab your phone.
Yeah. And so I'm sitting there mindlessly doing just nothing.
Yeah.
Right. Because that's all it ever is. I could say as much as, oh, I'm planning for the day or what. No, I'm not.
You're scrolling.
I'm on Facebook or I'm scrolling.
Yeah.
And so I had to get out of that mindset as well. Because what's on the news? Is there anything good in the news anymore? No. Mm-hmm. We have a hot tub. We're very blessed that we have a hot tub. And so my wife is not a morning person. And so she's asleep till the last possible minute. So I have that window to decide, well, what am I going to do? The journaling thing, it wasn't going to work for me in the morning because it's not something that I could get myself into. And maybe it'll change because I'm going to check out the 5-minute journal. But I jump in the hot tub, and the first thing, as soon as I get in the hot tub, because it's warm and I like being in the hot tub, I can't bring my phone in the hot tub. Nope. I just think of what I'm grateful for. And so I just run through it in my head. All right. Just a couple minutes of appreciation, of gratitude for what we have. And then after that, I'm able to start thinking about not necessarily the day, but the goals. Because if I think less about my to-do list and more about what do I want to achieve to better myself, there'll be things that I have to take care of. Those will show themselves to me. I don't have to put much thought into that. I know I have to pick up my daughter. I don't have to pick that, put that. Some people do. I don't have to put that in my head. So now I can focus on what my goals are. And when you're working towards something that you want to achieve, whatever it is, it's going to put you in a better mood, right? If you're going on a trip somewhere to wherever it is, you're in a better mood knowing you're going to get there. You get a flat tire, I'm still going on a trip.
Yes.
Right? So that's what I find my routine. And I think so many people, they're looking for what makes sense to them, but they give up too easily because they try one or two things. They go, that's not for me. I guess it's not in me. No, that's not true. It's a matter of what is the goal that you want to achieve. If at the end of it, you want to feel a sense of gratitude, find a different path. Yes. So whether it is journaling, whether it is, don't go buy a hot tub just to do this, go for a walk, listen to great music. On the He Changed It app, there's words of inspiration. The Spark, such a great category. I love that. Oh,
man. And we got plans for Spark. You should see some of the things we got planned. Yeah, that was a genius move on Joel's part with the song lyrics and we got big plans for Spark. It's going to be neat.
Well, I don't believe in quotes at all.
Yeah.
But I think it's for everybody to be able to find what works for them, but don't give up. If you want to achieve the end goal, you need to find a way to get there. Mm-hmm. Because you know what the opposite of gratitude is? Entitlement. So when you don't,
interesting. Okay.
When I didn't make that up. I read that once, so it's got to be true.
No, I dig that. Like the opposite of love is not hate. It's indifference.
It's indifference.
It's when you don't care, right? And the idea of the opposite of gratitude or being grateful is being entitled for something. That makes a metric shit ton of sense to me.
Well, if you think of any situation where you saw a person who wasn't grateful, they expected the outcome.
Yeah. And so potentially wasn't happy with it anyway because there's just misery there. And maybe it didn't work out exactly how they thought it was going to work out.
How much fun is that life?
Yep.
A life of complaining about things that didn't happen.
Chasing a dragon always.
Well, here's a positive thing that happened. Oh, well, it was supposed to happen. Well, don't explain to me why good happens.
Yeah.
And then just say bad happens because it is what it is.
Absolutely. And I think we can do that in life. Like to go back to something that you said, one thing that I, again, dissecting my personality and why I am the way that I am, I'll tell you, I fell ass backwards into something when I was 19 years old. I was 19. I was working for Costco at the time. And it was before I got into marketing or business or any of that stuff. I was literally a 19-year-old and I was just stocking shelves 5 a.m. till 1. And I was walking by one of the guys who was a senior guy. He was like probably 15 years older than me. He was in his 30s. And he was asking me about stuff. He just had taken a liking to me. He knew that I was a big LA Kings fan. And this was maybe in September. The summer was just ending and people were kind of getting back into that, time to, start preparing for the winter kind of mode or whatever. And I remember him saying to me, "Hey man, why are you smiling?" And I'm like, "Oh, I just got tickets for an LA Kings Vancouver Canucks game that's happening in March." And he said to me, he goes, "Oh, okay." And you know, he's a big hockey fan too. And I'm a huge Kings fan. And so he goes, "Oh, that's interesting." I said, "Yeah. And I've got concert tickets for in December, where I'm going to see a show in December. I forget which band it was." And he goes, "Oh, that's cool." And I remember it falling out of my mouth, Bib, but I don't remember ever consciously thinking of it. I said, "Yeah, I always like having something to look forward to."
Yeah.
And to me, that's gratitude in the future, where you're already bookmarking gratitude. And you talked a little bit about that. And it just, one of the things that I have always done is I've always had something to look forward to. And if I don't have something to look forward to, I become aware of that and I try and figure out something, whatever it might be, little or big. If you have something to look forward to, and you always have something to focus on, like you said earlier, yeah, I got a flat tire, but I've got this happening. And I think that's a secret. I think that's a life secret that if you apply it, you might live a more fulfilled life.
Yeah, it's definitely a mentality to have. You know, whatever you put out comes back. You put out positivity, it's going to come back. It might not come back instantaneously.
Yep.
But it will come back to you. Right. What you put out to the universe. I think you believe in that stuff as well.
Very much so.
Thoughts become things. The ability to look forward to something, absolutely. But it also has to evolve to a certain extent. You know, when my wife and I were in Calgary working, both had fantastic jobs, working our butts off. We'd go on 2 trips a year. And then before the trip was over, on the way home, we'd be planning the next trip, which is great on paper and lifestyle. And I don't have any complaints about that.
Yep.
But then one thing we just realized is we got to start focusing on the in-between.
Yes.
And that's one of the reasons what brought us to the Okanagan, was going, we can't live for those 2 things. We can't just go. It's like I worked at a job where this lady could, at any point in the week, she would tell you how many hours until Friday, 5 p.m. was.
Oh, wow.
You go in there Monday at 8 o'clock and she'd be telling you, "Hey, how are you? Oh, it's only this much time till Friday, 5 p.m. I'm like, that's 5 days that you're waiting to get to the end result there. And that's only 5 days. Some people are like 2 months away. I can't wait till this. Remember when you were a kid and like a birthday party was a month away, or your birthday was a month away, and you didn't think of anything until that day. Every day was like, I can't wait to get to a month from now. I can't wait to get to 28 days from now.
Yes.
There's a lot of time in between these periods of what we think is the happiness periods, but it's more gratification. You can be happy in between. You just have to be appreciative of where you're at without being satisfied, and differentiate the two.
Yes.
Because once you start linking satisfaction and happiness, then you have every day where you're just waiting for that next great thing to happen to provide your happiness. If I go buy this, I'll be happy. If I go to this concert, I'll be happy. If I go do this thing on this vacation, I'll be happy. That's not what drives you.
Nope.
Yes, you want to go do that.
Yep.
Almost as a celebration. But if you can wake up every day going, I am grateful, then you'll find the days just get better.
Yes. I couldn't have said that better. The one thing about talking with you, and this happens all the time, is that time just goes by so quickly. We're already at the 45-minute mark.
Oh my goodness.
I know, man, we gotta close it up. And I mean, I feel like with you, as always, we're just getting started. I appreciate the ray of sunshine that you are in my life. As we're finishing this podcast, this almost sort of spontaneous podcast on gratitude, First off, I'm very grateful that that we did this. Take us out a little bit, and then I'll close it up. What are 3 things that you're grateful for right now, my friend?
Oh, easily. I'm grateful my family's healthy. Yeah. I'm grateful for these opportunities with you, Mike, and I'm grateful that I'm mentally well.
Yeah.
And appreciate it for the community around me in that regard. I'm grateful for 1,000 things, but that'd be another 45 minutes.
Yeah, it's nice when you can recognize the little things, and sometimes when that veil of darkness is over top of you mentally, it's really hard to get to that place of gratefulness, and that's where it does become an exercise. Right now, it's coming to me very, very easily. I'm grateful for the blessings that have been given to me. Furthermore, not just blessings, but like my actual family. I'm grateful for my entire family, and who they are, and for the good times, but also for the not so good times. Because in not so good times, that's when they, it becomes real and it becomes that much more precious. And I'm grateful also for you, buddy. I'm grateful for conversations like this. This has been one of those podcasts where it's just a love fest. And boy, when I need my cup filled, Bib, you're the guy that can have a conversation with me and do that for me very, very easily. And I just want to say Thank you for that. Thank you for ringing my bell, saying we got to do this. And if you and Landon ever need a special guest on your podcast, you ask me, and wherever and whenever it is, I'm there. Congratulations on doing this. I'm glad that you're filling your cup with that. And I look forward to the next time that you are on heCast, man.
All my love, man. Thank you so much.
Oh, there it is. They go by real quick. One of the favorite times of my entire week is doing these, and I just look forward to, from all the responses that we've been getting here. It's full steam ahead, and people are reacting really well and receiving heCast really well. Please subscribe and share. And if you know of anybody or any stories that need to be highlighted on heCast, please reach out to us. We just are so grateful for you. We're grateful for this platform, for what heChanged It is doing, where it's at right now, and man, where it's going. So for another episode done, heCast, the official podcast of heChanged It. My name is Mike Chisholm. Go change something.